Namaste. Welcome to the beginning of another live Sangha. May this be an offering to the divinity within you. I would like to begin with a short invocation of the Gayatri Mantra. So if you know it, you're welcome to join along with me. Okay. Om Bhur-Bhuvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yodnah Prachodayat. Om. So as we await our first guests to arrive, allow me to set the intention for this space, as always, of being one in which everyone is welcome, regardless of our differences which may appear on the surface. Let us seek the unity at heart from which all of this diversity originates. Let us come together as fellow students of life to uplift each other, relate in one another's experience, and share positive sentiments. Thank you. Namaste, dear Starlight. Wow, thank you for being here and for blessing us so early on again with some flowers. Very beautiful where I am. A lot of the flowers are returning back to the soil as autumn continues to approach, a time of rest in which many plants and animals are beginning to prepare to go back to sleep. Radhe or Radhe, dear Magdalene. Thank you for a sandy flower. I appreciate that. Speaking of flowers going away, Sandy, my dear cat who loves to eat flowers, he will have to survive off of regular food, unfortunately. Though he would love to persist simply off of flowers, just not possible in this season. So thank you, Magdalene. Hello, dear Assad. You share that you have a busy day tomorrow but can't sleep. Well, maybe that's why you can't sleep, is because you've put so much of yourself in another time. How can we be here now to sleep? This means withdrawing our awareness into just what exists in this moment. A comfy bed, hopefully a welcoming community, 4 walls around you, a roof, a floor, cool breeze if you have a fan on or the window open, and may you find some rest so that you can do the best that you can tomorrow. Namaste, inevitable. And thank you, old 89, for the tiny that you sent as well. Yippee! I'm happy I can relate with that, dear Assad. I certainly know what it's like to stay up waiting for tomorrow, which certainly no way to sleep. Hello, Finding Bliss. I am back. I had a good 3 days of familial matters. Grandparents are in town from another province, taking me out for dinner. Then I had a day of rest, and then I spent yesterday with my father, whom had his birthday. Yeah, no excuse not to be here today. So here I am. Always happy to be here anyway. Hello, dear Anna. Hello, Angel. Welcome. I saw that you submitted something for the show and tell. I hope to show it next time. Today is another show and tell. Hello, dear Michelle. Thank you for your happy birthday wishes for my dad, dear Orla. And welcome, Echo Leaf. Thank you for your trio of roses too. Om Mani Padme Hum. Now that you are here, everyone, I'd like to ask you all my question of the day if you're interested in thinking with me. Today I'm wondering about silence. Specifically, the necessity of silence sometimes. I'm curious, when or where is silence most needed? A time or a place, a context in general. And thank you, dear Angela, for the rose you sent as well. Radhe, Radhe. Dear Clean Sheets, thank you for your happy birthday wishes for my father as well. And I am well. I hope you are too. Hello, dear Andrew and Ben. And Angel, you share that sometimes when we are overwhelmed, all we need is silence. I like that. In a time or place where we're overwhelmed. Yeah. Dear Andrew, you share Congress. I see the truth in that. Gift you share in the morning. Oh, yes. You're so true with that. And yet, so many loud things happen in the morning, don't they? Dear Kelly, you share when listening. I like that. I like how you've actually pointed to a kind of silence that can coexist with sound. Because when we're listening to a sound, it's filling the silence, but that silence is definitely there on our side still. And gift you share in the forest too. Yeah, I like that. Even when the wind is blown, you can hear the rustling of the leaves and the animals. There's a kind of silence that isn't literally absolutely without sound, but a background of nature that's very beautiful. Montreal, you share when there is stress. Yeah, stress can certainly benefit from silence too. And I like your description of silence being golden, dear flower. And Clean Sheets, you add that you think silence is needed regularly throughout the day, in regular installments. I concur. And welcome, dear Sky Guardian G. Angela, you share that silence is most needed in the midst of chaos, noise, and confusion. I agree. Woke Mind Virus, you ask, your own silence or silence of the world, quietening the mind as well? I think all of those are applicable in this context. Of course, silence of the world is definitely going to be more difficult than inner silence, of course. And Assad, you share that silence is most needed in moments requiring focus, deep thinking, or respectful listening. I love all those points. That's an acute observance. Yeah. Any time when we are needing to be centered. Hello, dear Renvox. How art thou? I am well, thank you. How are you? Dear Orla, you share silence is needed when one cannot think of an answer to the question of the day. Here, I'll be silent for you then. There. Was that enough time? Probably not. Anyway. Not the stand user, you share that during anger is best for silence, and writing is best while angry too. I like how you've connected it to the emotion of anger. Yeah, I like that. Sky Guardian, you shared during meditation or when your guru, Swami Taratmanandaji, is teaching lectures. He doesn't like when phones go off. I like that answer, both of them. Thank you for sharing that and making me smile. And thank you, Not the Stand User, for your octet of roses too. Ram Ram. Good afternoon, dear Talon. You like silence best in the morning. I can relate with that. And this space actually works better with phones on, doesn't it? If I told you to turn your phones off, well, you wouldn't be here then. Dear Talon, you add that you know a relationship is good when you can be in silence together. I love that, without it being awkward. Enjoying each other's company. And Assad, you shared that silence in not only sound, but silence in thoughts can also help. I think that's an even louder kind of silence, if you know what I mean. You know, you can hear physical silence, but mental silence is just such a presence in the absence itself. And Fleur, you share when you need to make an important decision. Oh, that's true. Going to be much more challenging if you're surrounded by sirens or kids wailing or pots and pans banging. I would hope for all the important decisions in my life to be made with a kind of silence. And as Assad points out, hopefully a mental kind of silence too. Dear Anna, you share silence is needed most when you want so bad to laugh at something, but it's inappropriate to. That's a great answer. I like that. That's funny, dear Sky Guardian. I have noticed in Swamiji's lectures, he's looking in your frequent direction. But he's very polite, and I know he doesn't hold anything against you for having a phone, having people to talk to. Inti Berry, you share silence is needed most when the snow is falling, to be in the moment. I love that. And I really like how during a snowfall, it is often quite quiet. For one, not as many cars are on the road, and secondly, I believe snow has a sound dampening effect. And when there's no wind, just standing in a field of snow is so calm. And I love that quote from Gandhi, dear Jan. Speak only if it improves the silence. Oh, how beautiful. Dear Breathe, you had asked a big question that we can certainly go into in more detail after our introductory segments are over, but you had asked, how do I overcome alcoholism? That's actually a beautiful question because it comes from such a state of being ready, being vulnerable through acknowledgement. And I have discovered that that's half the battle already. Coming to recognize that there's something that we can do about this. And our life will be certainly improved in many ways by embarking along that path. I know it's a long journey for many, but it can be alleviated greatly by trust in a higher power, even if it's not something traditional. Like I heard in AA, they often leave a seat for anyone, whether it's Jesus, the Buddha, Krishna, or some guy named Bob. As long as we are surrendering ourselves to some greater whole, then we feel like we're not alone in the journey. But little by little, we can take steps to put us in an environment which is conducive to our health, surround ourselves with people that care for our health and well-being, not just in the short term, but in the long run, because ultimately it is a surrender of a short-term experience of gratification for a long-term experience of satisfaction. We can certainly talk more about this, but I'll put it like that there for now. Back to the question of the day, dear Tyson, you share when sleeping. Silence is most needed, I concur. And hello, dear Joe-san. You share silence is most needed when you're talking. It's true. When we have someone listening to us. And hello, dear Chloe. I am a little bit in the past catching up with the comments. But thank you, dear Not the Stand user. Oh, I thanked you for these roses. There was a little movement on my screen near the gift section. I thought that something else came through. But yes, my gratitude still remains for those roses sent earlier. Welcome, dear Cheesy Eggs. And dear Orla, you share that my moment of silence was appreciated. And you meant with silence to listen to ideas of others. I love that kind of silence too. Hello, dear NATO Bite. Welcome again. And Doom Knight, you share that silence helps me hear that it doesn't exist. Whoa. How profound with that. I like that. Not the Stand user, you had expanded on your connection between silence and anger, that writing helps to understand the cause of anger. Instantly speaking while angry just traps you. I have noticed that myself too. There are times in which we should just express everything. And there are times for us to be a little bit more patient with our own expression. Anger is certainly one of those times. Dear Angel, you can speak to the loudness of silence too, as it scared you as a child, but now it's peaceful. I am happy to hear that. And I concur with that, dear Assad. Mental silence can be challenging. And Angela, you had shared that sometimes silence speaks volume in the absence of words. Very beautiful. Thank you for asking earlier, Chloe. How I am well. Thank you. I hope you are too. And part of my hiccup. And Sky, my day went well. I had a nice walk. Yes, Jenny, silence is most needed at bedtime. I concur, and I like how you share that when it's raining. Silence is nice too, dear Chloe. Great background noise. And Sky Guardian, you had shared in relation to alcoholism that you can potentially replace one habit with another. So if you want to smoke, eat a carrot instead. Perhaps with drinking, the same can help. Easier said than done, of course, but absolutely our brain works in terms of the positive. We can say that something in our life should go, but then what should fill that space left afterwards? Be thinking like that, and just having some routine, anything at all, to fill that space is wonderful. Windy, you had shared that silence is most needed when stress is at the highest, when the mind is the most busiest. I like that answer a lot too. And change my mind. Your answer was in your house with those damn maniac kids. And you know what's even scarier than what's even more stressful than a house full of loud kids is a house full of silent kids, The moment that your child becomes quiet in the other room, now you're really wondering, oh boy, what are they up to? Yourself, you had shared a beautiful answer too. That silence is most needed when someone gets arrested for safety. I like that. Yeah, that's a very practical place that you've pointed out for silence to be. But welcome, Flower. Yes, I took 3 days off to be with my family. That's when you go check on your grandkids, dear Kelly, when they're quiet all of a sudden. Yeah, exactly, dear Sky Guardian. When the police are reading your Miranda rights, you have the right to remain silent. Exactly. Dear Chloe, you share that it's gotten to where you meditate in the morning and evening. I'm so happy to hear that. That's wonderful. That takes a lot of skill, patience, trust. Do share your secrets with everyone. And hello, dear Hail Horse. Sounds like you're still processing some parts of your breakup or your heartbreak. Sorry, you didn't say breakup. Your heartbreak, and totally understandable. Tears are valid. When meditating, silence is very needed. I agree with that. Inevitable. Welcome, Nume. Thank you for being a part of this space. And Lakonen, I like your answer too. Public restrooms. Alright, I'm going to pause our question of the day there for now. So thank you everyone for exploring it. I really liked this exploration today. I'm very grateful for that. So many ways in which silence is necessary. I think one of the most important of all that has been shared is a kind of inner silence, especially when the world around us is chaotic. It goes both ways. When there's an inner calamity, it's best that we have outer silence. And when there's an outer calamity, it's best that we have inner silence. Isn't it? Thank you, dear Not to Stand user, for the quartet of finger hearts that you shared too. Radhe, Radhe. And dear Anna, thank you for your ice cream cone. How sweet of you. You know, I'm very lucky. For whatever reason, my sister seems to be lactose intolerant, whereas I fortunately am able to eat lactose without having any apparent problems. But my sister, much like many people who are lactose intolerant, they love dairy so much that they're willing to go through the pain just to enjoy it. That's very respectable. Thank you, dear Bobby Sue, for the Heart Me team bracelet, and cheer you up that you send the Bobby Sue special. Never expected, but always appreciated. Thank you. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, dear Jeff. And thank you, Zadina Chorain, for the heart me you sent to Om Kring Kalikaye Namaha. And dear JR, thank you for your pumpkin spice latte. Om Somaya Namaha. Hello, dear Yale. You shared that you were trying your best to put your understanding into action. I like to hear that. That's the highest form of knowledge, is making it practical. I like that a lot. And dear Angela, yes, I'm very grateful to have you here. Crispy, you shared that silence can be loud when your mind takes over. Oh, you are very right with that. Hello, dear JR. Happy to hear your liking of beans still remains. Your heart has been broken all week, shares Hail Horse. Well, there's no timeline for being heartbroken. You're certainly allowed to. Yes, you are. Dear Anti-Light, you had asked how to tap into creativity at will. Ooh, that's very beautiful. I say that although there is always a potential for creative manifestations to happen anywhere, at any place, we also sometimes need time to rest. any muscle, the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets and the longer it will be able to endure being flexed. But also flexing our creative muscle, it takes practice too. And after practice comes periods of rest. Some people feel like they should be creative 24/7, and if they're not, they call it a creative block. But to me, there are periods of creative manifestation and then creative rest, where we just abide in the ideas until we have a way to create them. A place of patience, and that's necessary too. So ironically, I think my answer to you would be to allow yourself times of just abiding in ideas without needing to create anything. And then the times that you do create will just be that much more empowered and full of your experience that you gained during that time of rest. Thank you, dear Laura, for your tiny as well too. Yippee! JR, you had asked if I think being from Vancouver makes me extra chill. I think being by a large body of water helps. Even if it's a river or a lake, humans are naturally drawn towards the element of water. There's something very calming about it. And being landlocked, I feel, might be a little isolating sometimes, especially if there isn't a place for you to just take in the beauty of a natural landscape such as the ocean. But I'm very grateful to be where I am. I've never heard of rat milk, dear Sky Guardian, but I assume that given that producing milk is a quality of mammals, then probably do too. Whether it's commodified and sold on the shelf, I'm not sure. Certainly never tried that. Angela, you share that you just realize I am very demure, very mindful, very respectful. I've heard that was a meme going around. I think that's very wholesome. Thank you. Dear Jane, you ask, how is your energy? Well, you share a nice blushy smile emoji, some painting nails emoji, and some sparkles. Very excellent energy, radiating self-expression and beauty. So top notch right now. Dear Sky Guardian, you share that ChatGPT says rat milk is primarily studied for scientific research rather than for practical use. That makes sense. Thank you for attending to our curiosity. Thank you, It's Pidge, for your pride classes too. Jaya Sitaram. Dear Shay, thank you for your trio of roses as well. Dum Dargaye Namaha. Hello, dear Talkintan. What's the good word today? I'm a big fan of words. Why don't we crack open a random verse from the Bhagavad Gita? O Arjuna, I give heat, and I withhold and pour down the rain. I am immortality, and also death. I am both the truth and the untruth. the word that spoke most to me in that verse of the 19th chapter of the 19th verse of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita was immortality, which in Sanskrit is amritang. Very beautiful word, where we get the term ambrosia in English, I believe. And that's right, dear Angela, your intuition is right. Landlocked is a funny term, if you think about it. But yes, it means a body of water is not close by. And thank you for finding beauty in me, dear Jeff. And femininity, though I am born in the body of a male, I am happy for you to see me in terms of the masculine or the feminine. But you asked about my relationship status. I am one whom has fallen in love with the universe, and I guess that makes me a little bit of a monk to say that, because my relations are currently not open for any kind of romantic intimacy, but I hope to affirm to everyone that I have love for the divine within you. Thank you, dear Shay, for the beautiful sets of roses that you sent to a trio, a quartet, a singular one, another quartet, half a dozen, and a pair. Om Gang Ganapataye Namaha. And that's right, dear Anna. Ambrosia is the food of gods. Thank you, dear Zadina Torain, for your quartet of tiny tinies as well, too. Yippee! I would like to read from another section of this book, The Hidden Power in Humans. It's actually where I first learned about how Amrita, the nectar of immortality, is extracted through yogic processes from the Bindu chakra at the cowlick at the back of the head as it drips down the spine to be burnt in the Manipura chakra unless we can collect it in our throat, thereby gaining youthfulness. That capture your interest? This is the philosophy of yoga, one of the 6 classical schools of Indian philosophy. We've actually pretty much finished up this book now. There's just some discourse on the sampradaya, the tradition of our author, Paramahansa Swami Maheshwarananda, who is the guru of the person in here who sent this book to me, dear Ushabai. She sent it so that we may learn from her guru too, as this book has benefited her. And right now I believe she's in Venice at the feet of her guru, which is beautiful. So as we continue to wrap up our reading of this book, let's talk about the Guru Parampara, the lineage of spiritual masters from which this author is. I believe this was not written directly by the author, but by being by the name of Hans Hurschlager, who has a bachelor's in English, I believe, or engineering. ENG is engineering, yes. If I pronounce his name right. He is the president of the Yoga in Daily Life Society in Austria. He writes for us that God is in every being, and every human has the capacity to recognize their own divine origin, but only few are conscious of this wonderful opportunity, and even fewer actually achieve this level of realization. In every cultural circle, people are trying to realize the highest of goals. The Western world honors those few chosen souls who have realized the highest and true sense of this human incarnation and describes them as saints and prophets. With Eastern religions, it is similar, but there is one very real difference. The West considers saints as a phenomenon of the past, but the East does not. In the East, the birth of a saint in our time is not only held to be possible, but is even constantly prayed for. These prayers can be answered at any time and rewarded by the incarnation of a saintly soul. But it is not an easy task to recognize a saint. Even in Eastern cultures where many people are receptive to this idea, not all possess the gift of recognizing a divine incarnation. The master lineage of Paramahansa Swami Maheshwarananda, our author, is characterized by an unbroken succession of perfect incarnations of divine love, power, and wisdom. At the beginning of this lineage stands the so-called Master of the Himalayas, Shri Alakpuri Ji. Let's talk about him. Shri Alakpuri Ji comes with a picture of the holy mount of Kailash. In the Himalayas, between the pilgrimage places of Kedarnath and Badrinath, which are also called Himachal Pradesh, lies the Siddha Dhuni or Siddha Dham Ashram. At times, Shri Alakpuri Ji stays here with some disciples. He is one of the great Siddhas or Rishis, seers from Satya Loka, the highest level of truth and reality. The 7 Rishis, protectors of the world, are sometimes visible on the earth, but mostly invisible. Their age is unknown to us, but have lived for thousands of years and are capable of rejuvenating their bodies and changing their form at will as they stand above the laws of the physical world. The existence of these great masters and saints is an invaluable blessing for the rest of all of us. Their prayers and meditations form a counterpart to the numerous destructive tendencies and influences in the world. They stand by humanity, helping it to gradually realize God and manifest the divine vision of universal love on earth. Shri Devpuri Ji, which is the Paramaguru, the supreme spiritual teacher of our author, is one of these great avatars in the succession of Shri Alakpuri Ji, as was also the legendary Babaji, from whom the lineage of Paramahansa Yogananda stems. There's also Param Yogeshwar Shri Devpuri Ji, who is an embodiment of Lord Shiva. Shiva is the liberator, the destroyer of evil and wickedness. He embodies the light of consciousness and the fire of purification. Humans are indebted to Lord Shiva for the science of yoga. He revealed this knowledge to the Divine Mother, Parvati, and in this way presented it as a gift to the entire world. A bhakta, a devotee who meditates on Lord Shiva, attains liberation via a shorter path, as Shiva is the kindest and most merciful of the Divine Trinity. And in the Divine Trinity includes as well as Shiva, Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and another name for Shiva is Mahesh or Maheshvara, the destroyer/liberator. And these 3 illustrate 3 aspects of the one reality, Vishwadipa, the universal divine light. The three are in reality one. But, as we said, Shiva is the most merciful of the three, and those who wish for his gifts yet are unwilling to make an effort can also frighten with his anger. Shri Devpuri ji held many wonderful satsangs in his ashram in Kailash in Rajasthan, not just for humans but also animals, snakes, scorpions, dogs, and birds, as they always surrounded him. And there is also a picture of him too. He could speak with these animals because he spoke and understood the universal language, and the animals would listen attentively to his words. Many miracles have been reported, and I would like to tell a few of them here. But these are also events taken from the book Leela Amrit, The Divine Life of Shri Mahaprabhuji. There once was a Pandit from Kailash who visited the ashram with his father as a 14-year-old boy. And he was witness to a truly astonishing miracle. Shri Devpuri ji had received a wound to the lower part of his right leg. Its condition steadily worsened until it finally began to suppurate. Now that's a word I've not heard before, but it doesn't sound good. The whole leg was so badly inflamed and swollen, and my father urged Shri Devpuri ji to allow a doctor to give treatment. Shri Devpuri ji, however, was unaffected by the state of his leg and only replied, "If it disturbs you so much, I will cut it away." Immediately, he took hold of his sword, put it to the wound, and with one deep cut removed the flesh from the entire calf muscle so that the bare bone lay exposed. Then he removed his turban and bandaged the open wound and, smiling, asked my father, "Is this better for you?" My father and I watched his actions speechless. Shortly afterwards, we said goodbye, still speechless with astonishment and shock. The next day, we again visited Shri Devpuri ji to inquire how he was, and he showed us a perfectly healed leg. Not the slightest sign of any injury or scar could be seen. There are some more wonderful stories of this great master, Param Yogeshwar Shri Devpuri ji, of the lineage to which our author belongs, but we'll pause it there for now. So, thank you for listening. Namaste. We can open our Sangha back up to discuss whatever is on our hearts and minds. But hello, dear Ushabai. Oh, you had to come while we were reading. You shared that you came back from Vienna, Austria. Oh, did I say Venice? It's a little bit of a different place, isn't it? But I'm happy to know that you are back after visiting your dear Guruji. Thank you for your hanging lights, your flowers, and your baker's dozen worth of roses too. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, dear Giuliano, for the heart you sent whilst we read as well. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Dear Angela, you share that suppurate means to discharge pus. Oh, how yeah, I was going to make a joke about how appetizing, but quite the contrary, isn't it? Thank you, Kev, for the heart me you sent earlier too. Om Dum Dargaye Namaha. Thank you, dear John Simon, for your heart me as well. Radhe o Radhe. Dalen, you literally said yummy, yes. Nah. Sky Guardian, did you write this comment in relation to him cutting his leg off? How can we use it for prasadam distribution, for sanctified food offerings? My goodness. I don't think it'd be very sattvic now, would it? That'd be pretty tamasic, I think. Namaste, Los Reyes. Teresa, you were wondering, who is a mystic in my perspective? I really like the definition of a mystic that I heard Swami Taratmananda Ji share in relation to a guru. That a guru has two qualifications primarily: the ability to know the truth of the scriptures directly, as well as to be well versed in the words of the scriptures. If one just knows the truth, but is not learned or well versed in the scriptures, then they are a mystic, but not technically a guru. And of course, if they are learned in the scriptures, but are not directly perceiving the truth of them, then they are a pandit, they are a scholar. But a guru must have both. So according to that, a mystic is one who knows the truth, but not necessarily has a way to convey it to you. At least in any traditional sense. They don't belong to a traditional lineage. Dear Sky Guardian, you share that you are not talking about giving the leg as prasadam. You're talking about the rat milk. Okay, well that's better, isn't it? My apologies. I do not mean to associate with you with such ideas. Nonetheless, I thought it was of your divine sense of humor. Dear Teresa, you did see my videos about gurus, and I mentioned that as well. Some examples of maybe mystics, ones who seem to be established in some deep sense of peace, might include, of the modern age, Satguru, Jagi Vasudev. Is that his name? Anyway, he's commonly known as Satguru. There's also Shri Ravi Shankar, more commonly known as Gurudev. And these are non-traditional teachers, yet appear to be in a deep state of peace, one that seems analogous to a kind of Satchitananda that the scriptures bring us to, but they're also teachers known for going beyond scripture in the sense that their experience is a personal one. And I think that's very beautiful. For someone who wishes to be traditional, however, it's good to differentiate between lineage that stems directly from scriptures or ones that come from personal experience. But another great mystic, one that is revered, is Ramana Maharishi. Another great example of a mystic, someone who had a spontaneous enlightenment experience without having prior knowledge of scripture. Just when he was something like 14 years of age or thereabouts. Dear Sky Guardian, you share that Swami Taratmananda Ji, who is a traditional guru, taught a lot from mystics like Ramana Maharishi. Yeah, he's a great proponent of of Atma Vichara, self-inquiry. And I think I recently listened to a point that Swamiji gave about how mystics like Ramana are important and we can learn from their experience. However, we should do so while including the experiences of traditional teachers too. And I think he said that he would go so far as to say that it's even best for us to be such an inclusive seeker, where we also learn from teachers, traditional or mystical, if we want to put it along that dichotomy. Dear Teresa, you clarify that a person teaching from personal experience and enlightenment can be taken as a mystic. Then that's a great definition. I like that. Yeah, I think that is agreeable for me. Dear Benjamin, thank you for your heart me as well. Ariom Tat Sat. And Breast, thank you for your heart me and tiny. Yippee! Dear Jalen, you share there's this huge spider web. Y'all, 1 sec. You're gonna try to be a real Buddhist about this. OMG, you're freaking out. Spiders have a lot of metaphors relating to Vedanta, philosophy of the Vedas. For one, I mean, they sit in the middle of the web, feeling the vibrations of the whole. That's kind of like a meditative state, isn't it? But the web that comes from a spider, material existence, comes from the spider acting not only as the material cause, that which produces the webbing, but also the intellectual cause which produces the structure of it. So too it's said that Ishvara, a name for the divine, is like a spider, and the whole universe is like the spider web of the divine, because that divine also is both the material and intellectual cause of this universe, in the sense that this universe physically is a part of Ishvara. It is Ishvara, but also the structure of it, the order, the intelligent order also comes from the consciousness of Ishvara as Prakriti and Purusha, the material cause and the intellectual cause. Beautiful metaphor for the divine in the form of a spider. Dear Dr. Jenny, you share that a banana spider builds her web outside your window every year, and you love them, astounding creatures. I'm happy to hear of such reverence for dear spiders. Dear Anazek, you're wondering if I am maybe offended or angry with you? Not at all. No, there's not a single person in my Sangha whom I have such feelings towards in that way. I'm happy to be here with all of you. Thank you, dear Anazek, as well, for the heart you sent a few moments ago. Hariom Tat Sat. And dear Mel, thank you for your septet of cloud breads, a bubble tea, and a pair of fires. Ram Ram. Thank you, Tatvamasi, for your quintet of roses too. Jai Nisargadatta Maharaj. Dear Renvox, thank you for your friendship necklace as well. Hare Krishna. Dear Hail Horse, you had shared that you don't know how to be happy anymore. Your heart is broken. Oh, it's too soon to be thinking about that sort of thing. If you are smack dab right in the middle of processing loss, you're absolutely allowed to just feel that pain. Even though that pain seems deeper than anything we've experienced before, we cannot be so quick to generalize as though we're going to be feeling like this forever. Because that's simply not true. Any experience that comes to us also must go. But that's not to say that even during this time, you don't experience real suffering. Absolutely. That suffering occurs to you. And all my best wishes to you in this moment of sadness. And yet there's still value in experiencing it. In the same way there's value in watching a heartbreaking movie. We feel the heartbreak along with the actors and actresses in the movie. And it's part of what makes the movie profound. This experience of loss provides us possibilities to make amends with parts of our trauma. It can get us closer in touch with our values. We can discover independence, and of the things we've lost, we can also find them in other ways, in the things that have always been. Like when we've lost someone we've loved, we find the essence of their being with us all of the time. But it's hard to see that in the moment when we've identified them and our happiness with something that's physically no longer here. But at a subtle level, nothing can truly be lost from that which is all pervasive. And although it's hard to imagine, the great sages from yore have told us that your true nature as a being is something that has no limitations. And with that, there's nothing you can truly lose. But until we get to that level of trust, at the human level, of course, we need to take time for ourselves and allow our heart to grieve. Thank you, dear Dog Jana, for the marvelous confetti and team bracelet and heart me you sent to. Om Namo Vasudevaya. Did I forget a word in that mantra? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I think it literally still makes grammatical sense, but we gotta have that Bhagavate, which means of the personal form. Mantra for the personal form of the divine as the all-pervader. Dear Talon, you give an update on your spider dilemma. You share that you couldn't hurt them and you were scared to rehome them, and there are literally 5 on your porch right now. You just went inside. Well, remember that they're only as scared of you as you are of them. And they're truly beautiful beings that mean you no harm. In fact, I don't think I've ever been hurt by a spider. Maybe I've been bitten by one, but to be honest, it was probably because I scared it. Anyway, right now there's a bunch of spiders around the corners of my room. My bathroom has become a little bit of a habitat for them. There's a dozen of them on the ceiling. And they've grown on me. Over my life, I used to be really scared of them. I'd always be squishing them, killing them, bringing them outside of the house. But now I just kind of coexist with them, and it's a lot less stressful to be worrying about that. Thank you, dear Cody Jane, for the heart me you sent earlier as well. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. And Jay, thank you for that heart me. Radhe Radhe. And dear Dob Darker, thank you for your heart me too. Om Ganganapataye Namah. I will note that I'm so grateful that we have such an audience here. I apologize for my long answers too. I know that there are questions I haven't got to yet, but I hope to scroll up to see them. The only S, you had shared that your cat is being put down tomorrow. How can you ensure the atmosphere is pleasant for her to leave? Oh, when I was in college, I lived in a dormitory, and during that time, my parents decided to put my dear cat Cleo down, and they did so without telling me, because they didn't want it to affect my studies. But of course, as you can imagine, I would have preferred to have been there as she passed, so I didn't get the chance to say goodbye. But my mom affirmed me that she felt ready to go, and she was with her. And any way in which you can be there for her, and it would make me feel better too, knowing that another cat had someone there just with them to speak lovely words of affirmations regardless of a language barrier, to pet them, maybe hold their paw, maybe you can bring a toy that meant something to them. But I think the biggest thing you can do is continue to look at them, make eye contact with them, so that the last thing they see is their person, someone who had been a source of so much love for them and comfort and security. And affirm yourself too that the nature of their being will always remain in essence, just the physical form which is returning back to Mother Earth. Many people can relate with you in the loss of a cat, and I certainly do, given how much they resonate with me in my life. Thank you, just a name of sorts, for the subscription that you sent as well. Om Sum Suryaya Namaha. Always happy to be here on this path with you. And the only ask, you had also asked that, since you know you have some fears and traumas to heal from, but you haven't taken action lately, why is that? Because sometimes what is required to heal is to not do anything at all. Is to just be with that pain. And that may be exactly what you're doing successfully. Healing is a process, and a significant part of that process is just allowing ourselves to be exactly in the state that we're in right now, and have trust that it's unfolding just as it is meant to be. As I trust you to make the decisions required for your healing at the appropriate time. Allow yourself to be the only S. You share that you feel as though you are suffering at times from it. Well, of course, healing is an uncomfortable process. Yeah. Healing is not one that necessarily feels good. In fact, so much of our pain actually comes from running away from the suffering. We're trying to avoid it, but just being in that state of suffering, allowing yourself to feel this loss can be one of the most healing things you can do, within reason, of course. I'm not saying if you've stepped on a nail that you should stay stepping on that nail. If you can create space between yourself and the original cause of pain, that's great. But afterwards, allowing yourself to feel what continues to blossom from that experience with trust that it will bring you to a higher awakened consciousness, then even that suffering can be a part of the process. Namo Namaha. Not to stand you, sir. Thank you for your pair of finger hearts and your 10 roses as well. Om Shri Mahalakshmiya Namaha. Hello, dear Mads. Welcome, Smule, or Smule, however I pronounce it. Do let me know. I'm unfamiliar with that form of healing, dear Jessie. And I like your quote, dear Billy. The only way out is through. Feel the hurt and let go. And I love how much love that you have for your lost cat, dear Hail Horse. But I'm happy to hear that you feel comfortable to get some sleep now. May your departed cat visit you in your dreams and affirm you that its being is forever one with you. Dear Gaia, you had shared that today you realized your worth. Your worth meant nothing to someone with selfish boundaries. What's a good way to heal? I suppose by affirming that your worth is not defined by anyone else. And their inability to see that is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of where they are in their journey. And we wish them well, with space from us too. And we have to wish them well, because we want them to be a place of love for this world. So we pray that all those who hurt us heal from whatever pain that they've projected onto us too, so that there becomes more love in this world too. I think it's wonderful that you recognize your self-worth in some capacity, and you know that someone in your life didn't see it for the potential that you are. And as long as you are able to recognize just how much you have to offer this world, that's all that matters. Continually bringing this to mind is going to be a principled journey of healing for you. You had asked, how many times will it take for you to learn? Consider it, rather than a lesson that keeps returning to you, as a continual lesson that we are all learning. And the joy is in learning. May we all continue to learn. Thank you, dear Anazek, for the finger heart you sent to. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Hello, dear Jay. How am I? Doing well, thank you. I had a lovely day today. How are you? Dear Teresa, you had asked how to befriend the ego. I love your word choice. May feel as though that our ego is our enemy, and you write that you feel sometimes you're still in fight with it. Remember that our ego is not something that has a mind of its own. It is very much a part of us, and we have responsibility over it. According to philosophy of the Vedas, the ego, known as the ahankara, it is shaped by the chitta, the consciousness. It is not an illusory part of you. It's very real. The illusion is believing in it absolutely, as though the idea we have for ourselves is the truth. See, the idea that we have of ourselves is always going to be incomplete, because we could never incorporate the totality of ourself in our experience. Our true self, the Satchitananda Atma, the self of truth, consciousness, and bliss, can never be directly experienced, because it is the one doing the experiencing. Imagine, if you will, a single point floating in space, and its rays of awareness emanate in all directions from it. It has a capacity to be aware of that which is above, that which is below, that which is to the left, to the right, forward and backwards. As this point, it's aware of everything around it. But how can it see itself? How can this point possibly exist in such a way that it's not only in the middle of its awareness, but also some part away from it, so it gets to experience itself? What would that even mean? To be able to separate yourself from yourself, so that one part of yourself is doing the seeing, and then another part of yourself is being seen. According to some pretty agreeable definitions for what it means to be that witness, this is impossible. That the seer and the seen can never truly be one. Therefore, that which is seen is not the seer directly. Therefore, the seer cannot be seen. So what does this have to do with the ego? Well, our ego is also part of our experience. It's something that we are seeing, not necessarily with our physical eyes, but with the eye of awareness, our third eye, so to speak. As such, because our ego is a part of the seen, then it does not truly represent the seer. However, even though we've said so strongly to this point that the seer is not the seen, everything that can be seen ultimately does come from the seer. To use more theistic terms, that source is responsible for everything that we experience, but nothing in particular represents the totality of that source. Even if one were to capture the whole of this universe in one moment, well, what's to say of what other universes could have emanated from that source, which is infinitely beyond any object in particular? So, our conception of ourself, our source, is always going to be limited to what we can perceive. And what we can perceive is at best just a tiny, tiny part of that source which we are. So finally, in terms of practicality, as long as we are continually bringing to mind this understanding that our sense of self, the set of perceptions we have about the self, is limited, then we continue to make it unlimited. That is to say, as we continue to experience new things, let us continue to find an expression of ourself in that. So there's no concluding, aha, this is what I am. It's more of a, aha, in each moment, I am continuing to understand more and more what I am. Like you've hit some asymptotic approach to the self where every object of experience becomes a reflection of who you are. So we befriend our ego, our ahankara, by continuing to embrace everything that appears in our field of citta, consciousness. Now, that's a point that probably takes a long time to unpack, so I'm happy to continue talking about that in other ways at other times. For now, we can continue. All of this is discussed in various schools of philosophy, particularly Vedanta. The only S you had asked, can we do an inquiry to find yourself, a guided meditation? Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly do that sometime. I have a specific meditation planned tonight, but tomorrow or the next time I do a live stream, we can certainly do a guided meditation on Atma Vichara, self-inquiry. Thank you, dear David Robinson, for the heart me you had sent a moment ago too. Hare Krishna. Dear Cody Jane, you had asked, how can we take good care of our physical bodies using spiritual techniques? In some sense, everything we do is spiritual. Spiritual literally means in relation to the spirit. If something exists in relation to the spirit, then we call it as spiritual. And spirit being an archaic term for what we might call today as consciousness, awareness, the supreme subject of our experience, the essence of our being, the soul, the witness, the perceiver, the experience. So what is the role of the body in relation to the spirit? If we understand that, then this process can be made spiritual. Well, simply speaking, our body is the vehicle for spirit. Another name for spirit is the embodied one, because it's embodied in a body. Actually, it's not technically in the body. The body is in it, but that's a matter of semantics. Nonetheless, through our body, that conscious witness has 5 Jnanendriyas, organs of perception, to see and know the world around us. 5 Karmendriyas, which are the organs of locomotion, which allow us to express ourselves and move around and accumulate impressions in this world. And there are 5 elements too, the Mahabhutas, through which we get to create objects and use them for discovery, expression. So our body is like the instrument for us to experience ourselves indirectly. It's said that spirit is one, and so the soul of me is the same as the soul of you. The super soul of me is the same as the super soul of you, I should say. The Atma is one. But our bodies and minds are many. And so we get to experience the diversity of expressions that are within consciousness through our bodies and minds. Therefore, it's important to take care of this instrument so that we can continue to bring our true self, our truth, our consciousness, our bliss to each other, to this world. We take care of our bodies for the purpose of being an instrument for our spirit to find expression through. Knowing that our body is just that, an instrument through which the song of our soul can be sung. But the song of our soul exists separate from the instrument, and that same song can be played on many instruments. Instruments have a beginning and an end, but the eternal song of our soul does not. Poetically. Now that's a general kind of sense in which we can bring our body in relation to our spirit, but how do we actually go about taking care of it? I think one of the biggest things you can do is sit with it. Your body will tell you what it needs. If you are aware enough, your body will tell you. If it's craving something sweet, it probably needs some vitamins like vitamin C. If it's craving something savory, it probably requires some protein you get from a handful of nuts. If you are feeling like you are sore, and that probably means that you could do some more yoga, some asanas, some proper stretches. Regardless of what afflictions our body may be experiencing, just by taking a moment to be with it, to allow that spirit of awareness to permeate it, we can commune with the things that it's saying to us. That's where body scan meditations can be really helpful too. And the food we eat, but that's a whole other discussion. Dear Cassie, thank you for your trio of cloud breads too. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear Cody Jane, you had asked, what if we face resistance and take good care of our bodies? Then it is likely because we have experienced some trauma which we are mentally processing. Because if our attention is not at the level of the physical, then it must be at the level of the mental, where we are striving to gain some leverage over our mental health. Oftentimes, our mental health can be an impediment to our physical health, because if you're depressed and anxious, it may be very difficult to find the motivation to get out of bed, let alone to sleep at the appropriate times, or even brush your teeth, or exercising, basic hygiene. All of these things can be made more difficult when we're struggling with something mentally too. So taking care of our mental health can be a great first step in the direction of our physical health too. Dear S. McCormick, you had asked, what if our spirit is so angry? A very interesting question. We use the word spirit in mostly informal ways to describe a part of ourself that's very deep. And it's absolutely true that at a very deep level, there can be anger that we seemingly cannot let go of. And I'll talk more about that in just a second. But first, it's important to point out that in the most technical sense of the word spirit, you are not angry. And this is a spiritual truth, because anger is a very limited emotion. But your true self is beyond emotion, always. And that's because your true self is the witness of all experience. And anger and other emotions are objects of our experience. Not necessarily physical ones, but in this case, more mental ones. But your true self, the essence of your being, is not angry. In fact, as the ancient ones say, your true self is ever immersed in Satchit Ananda, in the bliss of truth and consciousness. That's our higher form, our unlimited nature. But at the level of the physical and the mental, then that nature certainly becomes confined and conditioned and made to appear as angry or joyful or sad or fearful. But these are all limited reflections of our unlimited self. Thank you, dear Simply Dawn, for your heartmeat, your pair of cheerio-ups, and a half a dozen team bracelets. Radhe Radhe. And dear Cassie, thank you for another heartmeat too. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Dear Sheila, you had asked, how do I know so much about so much? Me, old soul, you love the things you learn from me. Thank you. I love the things I learn from you. And I am truly quite ignorant, as there are so many things that I have yet to understand in this life. So count me at the same level as you, and I hope to continue to learn from you as I do from everything in our life. Thank you, dear David, for the applause you sent too. Here's an applause for everyone, regardless of what you're going through. Hello, dear Auntie. Welcome. Thank you, dear Sarah. The only S You share that you're very curious. Have I had any mystical experiences or unbelievable experiences? Of course. This one. It's unbelievable that a conscious experience could manifest from what could have been nothingness for all eternity. And yet here before us is a magnificent universe which is beyond our comprehension, and yet we have the luxury of being aware of it. How mystifying is this moment? How truly amazing it is to have this. I think that's pretty unbelievable. Thank you, dear Inevitable, for your tiny tool. Yippee! And dear Sarah, thank you for your quartet of roses. Radhe Radhe. Dear Dr. Jenny, you ask, if the soul can't be harmed or changed, how can it evolve? Or does it not evolve? I like this question. Indeed, the highest level, that soul is such that fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it, a sword cannot pierce it. How do we know this? Just by definition. The definition of who you are is the subject of life. In any experience, there are always two sides. That which is being experienced and that which is experiencing. That which is being experienced is the object of our experience. That which is experiencing is the subject of our experience. It is only the objects of our experience that have beginnings and ends. Beginning and ends exist only in relation to our experience. But the experiencer, just by definition, cannot pick up the qualities of the objects in which it experiences. And so, by this logic, the ancient sages concluded that our subject of the experience must be unchanging. You might call that spirit, soul, consciousness, awareness. And yet, we also describe that very same soul as evolving. So doesn't evolution imply a kind of change? And wouldn't this inherently contradict the idea of a changeless soul? And it's not a trick question. You're right, it does contradict it. So when we say the evolution of the soul, what we are really meaning is the evolution of the world that the soul gets to experience and express itself through. But the true source of our being does not actually go through any evolution. But the ways in which in this world we come to understand our soul does evolve indeed. But that evolution happens at the level of the nature, whereas the soul is untouched. Thank you, dear Anazek, for the friendship necklace you had shared as well. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Dear Gaia, you had asked, if we are subject, what is the objective vision from? The universe? I like this question too. You may notice that the terms subject and object have a kind of charge to them. People use the word subject informally to mean something that isn't necessarily true. And they use the term objective to describe something that is necessarily true, regardless of if you believe in it or not. But literally speaking, the word subjective means that which is true at the level of the subject, the experiencer. And objective means that which is true at the level of the object, the experienced. We experience an objective world, which means a world full of objects. But we live as a subjective reality because our reality is that we are subjects, to break down the literal use of this term. But still, the question is, where does the objective world comes from? Ultimately, it comes from us. So the ancient sages say that it is from witnessing itself. The objects are inspired into being. And this is just the inverse of what modern science is saying. Not the opposite, the inverse. Science says that from the objective reality, subjective reality emerges as an epiphenomenon. But from the perspective of ourself, it's the inverse. Is that from subjective reality, the epiphenomenon of objective reality manifests. In other words, first from comes consciousness, and then the mind and body and the world. It's an inside-out approach. So all of this that we experience without ultimately comes from within. Dear Sky Guardian, you share that I forgot to make Tattvam Asi a moderator too. Oh, I can certainly do that. Tattvam Asi, that you now are. Thank you, dear spiritual vibes, for the harp you sent a moment ago too. Dum Durgai Namah. And dear Painted Russell, thank you for Sage the Smart Bean. That's very cute. I've never got that gift before. I can tell you that for free. Thank you. Never expected, but always appreciated. Som Somaya Namah. And user 308, you ask the classic question, wouldn't the world still exist with no one experiencing it? How philosophical. It could, but then how would we know? Because everything we know of our existence comes from our experience of it. There's no way to experience anything without you experiencing it. So if by existence, what we really mean is the experience of a universe, then how can we call any form of the universe existing without the experience which implies that? That's not to say it's not possible. It's to say that it's irrelevant to our experience because we can only know our universe through our experience of it. And we can never be separated from experiencing because that is our fundamental nature. Perhaps there is a moment in which there is no more experiencing, and you might call that, relative to others, a universe without an experiencer. But to you, all you will get to experience is the absence of a world. But the world cannot experience the absence of you. Maybe we experience the absence of your body, your personality, but those things are part of the world, not a part of the one which is experiencing. Dear Lani, you ask, do I think there are outside spiritual beings observing us, experiencing our human experience? Lots of how many ways can we use the word experience? Depends what you mean by outside, in the sense of beyond what we experience in the world. Then we are exactly that spiritual being, observing this body and mind from the outside, having this human experience. Tattvamasi. Dear Teddy, you had asked, is there a shortcut to become that which witnesses? You're asking about a shortcut to become that which you already are. That which you already are cannot have shortcuts or long cuts. Hello, dear Ragnhildar. Dear user 308, you ask, isn't faith belief in existence without experience? That's a great definition for it. And in regards to our conversation, then yes, it becomes a matter of faith if this universe will continue without us, because we won't experience it. We can only believe in its existence without our experience. That's not to give you an existential crisis. It also assumes that you can exist separately from this existence, that somehow the experiencer could be without that which is being experienced. But to me, because they are inseparable, we needn't even worry about that possibility. Al-Haji, you ask, how do you become what you already are then? How do you become what you already are? Well, that defeats the point of becoming now, doesn't it? It means that we're still trying to be something which we don't need to try to be. So we let go of the trying and exist as we are. And dear Jessie, you ask a beautiful question. How does one offer empathy without creating attachment? Very difficult indeed, but the simple answer is to offer it without expecting anything in return. Attachments form through a transaction that I do this for you. Therefore, even if I don't say it, part of me believes that I should be getting something in return. But true knowledge means understanding that empathy is both the gift that you give and the gift that you receive, because you receive the opportunity to be empathetic, and we give the empathy. Having the opportunity to confide in the experience of each other, that is the most beautiful moment. Any extra expectation for anything to come to that means that we still have yet to find the perfect value in the moment of being empathetic itself. Easier said than done, of course. But you know, the joke between love, lust, and business, that when we just want to give without getting, that's love. And when we just want to get without giving, that's lust. And when we want to get as much as we give, then that's business. So it's up to you. Do you want this to be a life of lust, business, or love? Hello, dear Fadnor. Welcome. Welcome, dear Kalkiji. Love all, serve all. Shri Ram. Now, I do want to share something with all of you from one of you. As many of you know, there is a show and tell feature in the link tree in my bio. There is an application for you to submit audio files, video files, pictures, PDFs, something that means something to you. And I would be honored to use part of our time and space to echo your experience. So please check that out. Today I would like to show with you Nobody's Noise. They had titled what they wanted to share Noise, and they had described themselves as nobody. And I consider it an exploration of sound. Nobody sent 5 different sounds for us to explore. I am going to share with you 2 of them. They're all very interesting, but in the interest of saving time, as well as respecting people's thresholds for experiencing sound, I would like to share 2 of them. The other 3 might be triggering to those whom might struggle with their mental health, even though it's very interesting and beautiful. I personally love exploring such abstract soundscapes. I've selected 2 that are perhaps a little more akin to music so we can enjoy together. So without further ado, there are just a couple short tracts. The first is called Machine World, and the second is called The Rainbow Song. Let's start with Machine World. That was fun. That was Machine World. Some of you had expressed appreciation for it. Sounds like a dimensional escape. I certainly agree with that, dear Gaia. And yes, best with headphones, dear Angel. Cook shares Doom Knight. Trippy shares Neon Jello Pack. Cool shares Ragnhilder. I'm happy you liked it, dear Lani. And the only S you share, you were getting space adventure vibes from that with some vintage aesthetic to it. Yeah, I can see that too. And there's just one more. We'll listen to it now, called The Rainbow Song. Enjoy. And that was The Rainbow Song by nobody. So, thank you for listening. Thank you, dear nobody, for sharing these songs with me. And I look forward to future creations of nobody. Very chill. I concur with that. That one put a smile on your face, dear Lani. I'm happy to hear that. Melinda, you shared Trap Me in an Elevator with that. Yes. Happy many of you loved it. Relaxing shares Strawberry Star Bunny. I agree. The background rain, pretty perfect. Very down to earth shares Inevitable. Extra chill shares Anazek. Yeah. I like that. All right. If anyone else wants to share something, you are always welcome to check out that application form in the link tree in my bio, and I'd be happy to share something important to you. Thank you for listening. Namaste. And we can return to our background music now. Allow me to do that. Thank you, dear Ron, for the heart me you sent a few minutes ago too. Hari Om Tat Sat. You're very welcome. And Anazek, thank you for your quintet of roses and a pair of music plays, as we played a pair of musical songs. Hare Krishna. Dear Ron, thank you for your applause too. Your octet of them. I give you some claps. Dear Angela, thank you for your rose as well. Namo Namaha. Tattvam Asi, thank you for your pair of fires. I'm so grateful that many of you enjoy our show and tell segments. It's definitely becoming one of my favorite things to do together. There's actually another show and tell ready for next time. Dear Angel had made something for us. But dear Gaia, you had a question for me. What world would I create? You know, I think it's pretty hard to outdo the one in which we live in many ways. There are things that I certainly wouldn't have conceived of, not without great creative talent, that's for sure. But still, I think there are some adjustments we can make. For example, many people are living without the ability to have a place they call home, have someone they call a mom. They may be in war-torn countries, in places that they are suffering. I think we can continue to create a more compassionate world where everyone's needs are taken care of. I believe that we have the ability to make that world. It just requires getting the right minds together and taking the right course of collective action in the direction of inclusivity, love, welfare, etc. I like your question, dear Sky Guardian. But since nobody is the real somebody that is enlightened, does that mean he is somebody? No fun. Dear Flower, you share that you feel so lonely and detached from everything. It's like every time you try to speak, you can't get words out. You don't have to apologize for sharing that. Thank you for doing so. All words that you can get out, oftentimes better than no words. Good place to start is exactly what comes out first. We can go from there. We've all lived such unique experiences. It can be difficult to place trust in the ability for others to understand. And yet, even if we have such unique experiences that can never be replicated, I think we all know what it's like to feel sadness, anger, joy, fear. The feelings we can certainly relate with. Perhaps not the exact circumstance which brought them out, but the deeper we go into our own experience, I think the more unification is possible in terms of our understanding of each other. Hello, dear CWM. My name is Liam, but my friends call me Yam. Kalki Ji, you're wondering, when do I usually go live? Around a few hours ago. However, the past 3 days I had taken off to be with my family and to put emphasis on my physical well-being. But generally, my schedule updates can be found as posts on my Instagram or TikTok story. Dear Teddy, you had asked, what do I mean by going deeper? Oh, and that reminds me, before we began that show and tell segment, you had also asked what the purpose of life was. I think perhaps we can do a double whammy, explore the overlap between both of those questions. That which is shallow or surface level, in contrast to that which is deep, is a beautiful analogy for life and our experience of it. The surface of life is all the objects that we experience, like the sensations of hot or cold, pleasure or pain, victory and defeat, all of these dualities of life, which persist for a while, but ultimately subsist too. That's all happening at the surface. What's immediately before us, in the form of sights, sounds, feelings, tastes, and smells. But not only is there a whole world of material existence before us, there is a deeper reality, because we are not just made up of flesh and bones, which sleeps, decays, and dies. There's something immortal about our consciousness, the Lord of the earth and skies. To paraphrase a poem by Yogi Raj Sadgurunath Siddhanath, behind this experience of forms and names, there is an experiencer which is formless and nameless. That which is deeper than the surface is difficult to perceive, because directly you cannot perceive the perceiver. But indirectly, through our experience of this diverse life, we begin to infer of the nature of the space beyond, in which this whole world occurs. That you are. All I know is that we may go forth in search of finding some meaning in the world of forms and names. But all that which has a beginning surely has an end also. And so any real meaning must be found within. Dear the Only S, you share that you have submitted 2 recent songs for our show and tell. Thank you. I'm excited to listen to them as we do our sangas. Thank you, Zadina Choren, for the heart me you sent too. Ram Ram. And Dr. Ginny, thank you for your finger heart. Om Gring Kalikai Namah. Thank you, dear little moonbeam, for your heartbeat. Om Aing Saraswatyai Namah. You have a funny question, dear fiend. I believe you're referring to a company that produces what you may call toys of the adult genre. And as such, people explore their sexuality through them. And that's certainly everyone's right to become in touch with the limits and possibilities of their own body. The energy which can be used to procreate life is a fascinating one, both for scientists and spiritualists alike. It is the very same energy which we direct in other ways, in the creative, bring life into this world, not necessarily through flesh and bone, but in a myriad of expressions which tell the tale of the soul. Thank you, dear Kalki. Oh, I'm not sure if we'll be able to listen to a song from another artist, I'm afraid, as we run into copyright issues. But if there's something from your personal life that you want to share, I would be honored to host a space for it. Dear Jessie, you had asked, how does one cultivate validation from within? I love your question, because we've already come to this beautiful truth that validation may come from without, but it may also not come from without. If anything, the more we search for validation from without, the more we are met with a feeling of insecurity. Therefore, the highest kind of validation must come from within. Validation doesn't have to be an empty affirmation. By empty, I just mean that you tell it to yourself because you feel like you're supposed to. On the contrary, let that validation come organically, naturally, arising from knowledge. If you knew who you were, in truth, there would be no insecurity whatsoever. If only we knew the depths of our true being, we would not be hankering after simple pleasures of the senses, nor would the perceptions of others ever let us down, because our true self is beyond anything which can be known to this world. That Paravidya, that higher knowledge, that Atmavidya, knowledge of the self, is all that's required to feel secure. Because if you don't feel secure, then that must mean you must not realize that you are the source of life itself. You are pure Satchit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. You are the very space, in which this whole universe arises, persists, and subsides. You are that Tattvamasi. Spiritual journey is a very validating one, because it means coming into contact with your higher self, your true self. As we continue to bring our perception of ourself from the world, body, mind, intellect, and ego to pure consciousness, Chitta, will be naturally validated. And one way in which we come into contact with that validation is by continuing to express yourself without fear. That no matter what comes from you, there is always more to give. There is always the capacity to create, to love, to be kind, to be patient, to be compassionate, to bring more light into this world. And the more we do so, the more we can trust that that is our true nature, since it is totally inexhaustible. Zadina Choren, you ask, is negativity just where positivity can grow? And could I please answer like Yoda? You've given me a challenge. Okay. Indeed. The place that can grow, negativity is. Beautiful things possible, only from space. Growth exists in gardens. A garden. Oh, I'm gonna miss my subject, verb, object order. One can grow many flowers. A garden in. Oh, this is a challenge. I think I'm going to transition now to my regular speaking voice, that following what I attempted to say as Yoda, that only where there is space for a flower to grow, we may call that a garden. And negativity is just that. It's a negation of what has yet to arise. If you define a flower as something positive, then a garden for flowers to grow but has not yet grown is surely negative. But on one hand, calling it simply negative means that we don't realize the potential for growth here. The moment that we realize that there's potential for growth, then we cannot really even call it negativity anymore. But truthfully, it is so, in my experience at least, that wherever there is something that we deem as negative, there is something that is positive that could be there. And the possibility is something we have to realize. Satisfactory, I hope that answer was. Little Moonbeam, thank you for your heart me and your subscription too. I am grateful that I have such a space where you can be a part of this journey that we explore together. Thank you. And in any way in which I can continue to be in service to you, Namaste. Dear Peter Schaefer, thank you for your pair of roses too. Namah Shakti Shivaya. Dear Dr. Jenny, thank you for your rose as well. Kamali Mahakalikaye Namaha. Now you wish that you all had a Yoda sticker. That is perhaps something we can do. Although Yoda is a registered trademark of Lucasfilms and Disney Enterprises. Thank you, Zadina Turin, for your quartet of tiny dinies too. Tattvam Asi, you ask. Why flowering is the potential? Why isn't a barren ground beautiful? Indeed. Indeed. Another Kali, shares Dr. Jenny. Yes. Mahakali. I think it's time for an Adage of Wisdom from the book of 108 Adages of Wisdom. Here in this book we recount various sayings from Master Sheng Yen, translated into English, who was a Buddhist monk of the Chan tradition, which is stemming from China and Mahayana. Here let's go through one verse on protecting the spiritual environment. This one's called, "Take care of your mind, no matter the situation. Keep inner mind calm and peaceful. This is spiritual health. This is protecting the spiritual environment." And there's a little comic that comes with it. Looks like a patient whom is hearing their own heart with a stethoscope, and they're saying, "My mind is a little unsettled. Let me use the breathing method to calm it down." Rather wholesome. Oh, so important it is to keep our mind calm, peaceful, especially when the situation around us may not be described by those terms. Besides, if our outer world is something we want to make more calm and peaceful, then the best place to start is with our inner world, and let its peace radiate from there. Take care of your mind, no matter the situation. This is protecting the spiritual environment. Thank you for listening. And thank you, dear Anna, for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. Indeed, 108 is such a sacred number. Of course, I must have a mala with 108 of them. They're all around my altar at the moment. Namaste, dear Marlon. I'm happy to hear that you are doing some very productive work Laundry is very important. And you got medicine for your mate. I'm happy to hear that. They are so lucky to have you in their life. Dear Mama Angel Cindy, I am unfamiliar with how the current astrological situation is affecting our world. All I know is that regardless, there's going to be a possibility for us to make it a more peaceful place, and that is my primary concern. Dear Tattvam Asi, you ask, what's the difference between within and without? What's there within that's not in without? That reads like a Dr. Seuss poem. Like that. Truly, within and without are not different spaces. They are just directions of the same space. And they're metaphorical directions too. We only say within because we experience a local happening in this body, in this mind. But if you go inside your body, if you dissect the heart, you're not actually going to find your true self. It's not literally within in a physical sense. It's in the exact same way we use the metaphorical adjectives of the higher self and lower self. It's not like if we literally go up in the sky, we're going to find any being called the higher self. And if we dive deep into the earth, we're going to find our lower self. Both within, without, higher and lower speak to a dimension that cannot truly be described in terms of our three spatial ones. It would just be like trying to describe the third dimension to a 2D creature. You're looking down on this 2D creature, and this 2D creature hears your voice and asks, "Where are you?" And you say, "Well, I'm above you." And so that 2D creature looks north, which is still perpendicular to you, and you go, "Well, not above in the sense that you're familiar with above. I mean above as in over top of your being that I see all through you." And they say, "So you can see within me?" "Yes." "So you're within?" We go, "No, not really within. I can just see within you. My experience contains your inside as well as your outside." There's a great book called Flatland about this, though it's a little misogynistic for no good reason, because it's about geometry, but it was adapted into a movie as well. And it describes a 3D being trying to communicate with a 2D being. Anyway, this idea of that self which is within or higher just speaks to a dimension of life that is beyond our 3D world, beyond our physicality. What we mean is in the direction of our source, towards the potential, the possibility, as opposed to what already has become the manifest, the physical. Thank you, dear Anna, for the rose you sent too. Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha. Hello, Deneen. Dear Little Scully, you ask if I'm a storyteller or reader, ASMR artists. I do have an ASMR channel on my YouTube, and we have been reading through an ancient story called the Bhagavad Gita. You are certainly welcome to listen to that. And during these lives, I like to read from other books as well, particularly beginning and end. You're the only S. You ask, so if divinity is all of us on all levels, does that mean the Creator suffers just as creation? What a beautiful question. Yes, you are that source which is experiencing suffering. But at the same time, that suffering which you experience is only at the level of the world, of the creation. And your true self, which is that source, that creator, sustainer, and destroyer, is truly untouched by the suffering. No matter what happens to your body, your mind, your true self remains intact. Just like how space cannot actually be burnt, even though it may host the hottest fires. It cannot be wetted, even though it hosts the deepest oceans. And it cannot be blown away by the wind, even though it hosts the fiercest storms. Just like that space, your true self, although experiencing all of these things, is not actually affected. Thank you, Deneen, for the rose you sent too. It's always very humbling to receive but a single rose. Actually, it's humbling just to be here. So thank you for that opportunity. Om Brahm Bhairvaya Namo Namah. And Deanna, thank you for your Heart Me and Team bracelet as well. Om Kring Kalikaye Namah. Much love to you, dear Deneen. Namaste, my Lebanese friend. Dear Flower, you shared that there is a forest in your backyard. Any ideas for decorations to put there? A shrine, maybe? I think the forest is the decoration itself. The earth decorates herself in rivers and meadows, in mountains, valleys, and forests. But hanging lights would look beautiful, some fairy lights around. Maybe a shrine too, little forms of the divine. That would certainly make it pop. Dear FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, you ask, what do I think of astral projection? The term astral comes from the middle of 3 layers of the philosophy of yoga. That while awake, we experience the physical body. While dreaming, we experience the astral body. And while in deep sleep, we experience the causal body. But your true self is that which is beyond waking, dream, and deep sleep. That's called Turiya, which literally means the 4th state beyond those 3. So, according to this, we should understand ourselves to not be defined by what we are physically, astrally, or causally. We are pure awareness itself. But there are many experiences we can have at the physical, astral, or causal level. Yet none of those experiences will bring us in touch with the experiencer itself. And that's right, dear, my Lebanese friend. I was absent for the past couple of days. My grandparents were in town taking me for dinner. And then I had a hard time sleeping the night after that. You know, grandparents, they party hard. Am I right? And then yesterday was my father's birthday, so I went out and watched the new Beetlejuice movie with him. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Dear Taylin, you share that being aware is so heavy though. I know how you feel, especially when there is so much suffering to be aware of. But no matter what suffering you experience, the experiencer as the awareness is forever untouched. Here, let me put it like this. As long as we feel identified with what we're aware of, with the pain, for example, then it's heavy. But if you free yourself of that association, then it doesn't matter what you're aware of, because you know you are light. Dear Teddy, you ask, so, when the body dies, do we still have an identity as a person? And what happens to our experiences? I like your question. It's a matter of faith what will happen before and after death. But I can tell you that that state which is before and after must surely be the same. Because we are merely returning to whatever state spawned this existence for ourselves. Because nothingness makes no distinctions. That is the very definition. If we return to nothingness, it must be the very same nothingness from which this life began. From nothing into nothing, we return. That nothing clearly had the potential for this life to begin. And so we end right where we started. I think we can draw similar analogies from our day-to-day experience, since sleep is much like death in little ways. That sleep is simultaneously the place from which we awaken, and also into which we fall asleep. And sleep, like death, can be described as a kind of nothingness. And in particular, I refer to dreamless sleep. In such a state, you as the experiencer is still there, and yet there is an absence of things to experience. And this is the shift in perspective. It's not merely an absence of experience, it's an experience of absence. Though our experience remains, it's just that what we experience comes and goes. And if we truly understand that point, it's a very liberating one, because it means that even if our body and mind, which is part of our experience, comes and goes, the experiencer cannot come and go to itself. Whatever it is, it remains as such. It's just that there's an absence in the things we used to experience at the level of the world, body, and mind. As long as we are living with a body and mind, then it's only natural that we feel like we are defined by that. We experience acquiring a body. We feel, this is who I am. From our head to our toes. However, we only feel such because we've identified with it. Not because it's our identity do we feel such. The same is true no matter what we identify with, we will feel our sense of self there. For example, those who feel defined by their material possessions. If their material possessions become lost or stolen, then they feel like they are lost or stolen. If you feel identified by what kind of car you drive, then if your car gets into an accident, you feel like you've been in an accident. Even if you weren't the driver. Wherever we direct our awareness, we feel ourself being defined there. In our society, in our culture, there's so much awareness on our bodies that we naturally feel defined by them. But this is not true universally. In ancient times or in the East still today, there is prevalence of an awareness in other places, much more subtle parts of our being which are less physical. And so the question of what remains at death is less of an uncertainty. You had a follow-up question, dear Daddy, that the purpose of life is to return to nothingness before death of the physical. I like that. Yeah, and it's not merely a kind of nothingness in terms of, I don't know how to explain it. You know, we use the word nothing in two ways grammatically. It's kind of just a throwaway word to describe that which is not. If we say that I want to do nothing, what we really mean is that I don't want to do anything. But if we truly see nothing, the value that it is the very place in which everything arises. And in that sense, nothingness becomes the greatest realization. Hello, Relito. I'm happy that you've enjoyed my math rap. Speaking of set theory, it was from set theory that this idea of nothingness dawned on me as significant, because through the empty set, all other sets are born, thus populating our mathematical universe. Thank you, dear Deneen, for another rose. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dear brave Bella, thank you for your trinity of roses too. Hare Krishna. Dear Kalki Ji, you ask if I know anything about what it means to find the fourth city. How symbolic. Not by those words, but in general. Whenever there is some discovery of the fourth of anything, it's often in relation to the trinity of material existence. Like how we describe Turiya as literally meaning the fourth state, which is beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Trinities arise out of the three qualities of material existence, which is Rajas, responsible for creation, Sattva, responsible for preservation, and Tamas, responsible for dissolution. But as long as we are thinking in terms of creation, preservation, and destruction, then we still have not seen that which is beyond creation, beyond preservation, beyond destruction. The fourth state, we may find an abode on any of these three levels. But our true abode is beyond creation, beyond preservation, beyond destruction. That which cannot be created nor destroyed, and as such, nothing to preserve or maintain. It exists ceaselessly. So it's finding a kingdom within. I like that. I am just going to guess that the three kingdoms refer to the three realms, the three lokas, as dear Gregarji says. That there's Narak, which is the lower realm, the realm of unconscious beings whom experience waking, dream, and deep sleep, yet are unaware of their potential. That's the animal kingdom. There's the higher kingdom, which is immersed in comfort, that they are aware of their true nature, but they feel no need to go in search of it because they are very much immersed in luxury and divine pleasure. That's the realm of deities, devas. And then there's our realm at the level of the human, whom has the capacity to be aware of our highest self and put in the effort to realize it. And that's only possible here. No other realm is that possible. But our true abode is not in Narak, in Swarg, or Bhurlok. It's in the very space in which all of them exist as one. Thank you, Relito. Thank you, Deanna, for your tiny as well too. Yippee! Dear Kalki, you had also asked what my coolest spiritual dream is. Well, of course, I have to say this one, because this experience is not only dreamlike but very spiritual. But I did have a dream of Shri Yukteswar Giri, was the guru of Yogananda a few nights ago. I came to him and I wanted to profess myself as a student so that I may learn under him. But he was looking very old, and I was thinking, do I even have enough time to become his student when it seems like he is ready to leave this mortal world behind, which of course he did already in the waking world. Shri Yukteswar Giri left his body at the beginning of the 20th century. And there's actually a very beautiful video of that, where Yogananda, his disciple, is next to him, and he's still in meditation posture since he left his body consciously. And by that I mean he stopped his heart and left his body to die. Amazing, called Maha Samadhi. When a yogi consciously chooses their time of death, that I'm going to meditate right now, and this will be the last thing I do. And they leave through the crown chakra. Dear Kalki ji, you share that your Gurudev did that as well. Neem Karoli Baba. Yes, the Guru of Ram Das. And I love how you have found a teacher within him, even though he left us, presumably before you were even born. Thank you, dear Sadik, for your heart me as well. Dear David, you ask, wasn't there one who left their body and it turned into a statue? You may be thinking of the Buddhists. Many of them did so, and then their disciples turned their body into a living statue. They actually believe that their bodies are still alive, just in a state of deep rest. But you could also say that's a dead statue. And some of them are even within statues today. And you might not know that walking by some statues actually encase the Mahasamadhi of a Buddhist monk. That's how they found some of them, is they thought there's something moving in this statue. Something got in. So they opened it up and they went, oh my god, it's a Buddhist monk. And he's been in there for 1,000 years or something. Maybe not that long. But anyway. Dear HTTP Andrews, you ask, why do we compare death to sleep? What if death is a threshold that is still unknown to us? It's a great place of analogies, but with anything there are limitations, of course, and you point out a great limitation, which is that all of us in this life know what it's like to sleep. Maybe those with insomnia a little less. But we have yet to attain the state of the great sleep, which is death. So for that we can only rely on the words of scripture and the words of realized masters who claim to have experienced this process in another life. But that is a matter of faith. Thank you, dear Anna, for your TGIF too. You are in the future for me, and yet in the present moment, as right now, you are in Friday and I am in Thursday. Dear Marlon, you share that your dear Danny, on the 10th of November, you're going to be having been with each other for 6 years. That's wonderful. And it is approaching in the next few months. Thank you for sharing that. I certainly have all my best wishes for you to live a happy life together, as long as you want that, of course. Dear Kalki, you had asked what my opinions on Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. Oh, what a great master he was and is. The Buddha was one of my first entry points into spirituality. When I started thinking big questions about the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. Through my mathematical pursuits, one of the first places I was led to was Buddhism. And because I had begun thinking about questions that are often also asked in Buddhist contexts through mathematics, I revered the Buddha as the greatest mathematician that must have ever been. Because the only way I knew of some of these ideas was by exploring the depths of mathematics. And for the Buddha to have explored them 2,000 years ago before me, I thought, wow, the Buddha must be a really great mathematician. But I later came to know that it wasn't mathematics specifically which led me to those truths. It was the fact that if you go deep enough within anything, you'll find these things too. What I particularly liked about Buddhism is that it explained so much of our life in terms of awareness. That almost everything on our journey can be described in some terms of awareness. Which sounds so simple, yet this world is so complex. But it's all just the kind of flow of awareness. That stood out to me as significant because it was the same kind of realization that occurred while I was studying mathematics, specifically set theory. The idea that everything in the mathematical universe, which can be applied to our physical universe, can be described in terms of sets. Abstract mathematical objects that are just containers for other sets. Each of those sets containers for more sets, until you eventually get to, pardon my hiccups, a set containing nothing. But if we understand a set as a kind of awareness, in the most general sense, an acknowledgement of elements, then mathematically too we see that everything can be described in terms of awareness in different combinations with itself. We say everything is comprised of the empty set, just pure awareness in various combinations producing the mathematical universe. I thought whatever the Buddha discovered, he took it way further than I ever could within one lifetime of studying math. So allow me to rely on his experience. And soon I started studying under various different masters of the ancient world and found that they all spoke to this deep truth of everything arising from one conscious source. Kalki-ji, you shared that the Buddha was probably really good at math on a cosmic scale. That's probably true too. But as far as I know, calculus was only invented a few years ago. Set theory even less so. So whatever the Buddha had to discover this, it was transcendental to modern scientific methods, which is even more incredible, isn't it? The lazy philosopher, you had asked if I had thoughts on Terence McKenna too. He also was an early proponent in my spiritual journey. One which arose in my life before Buddha and Buddhism, but was absolutely a pivotal speaker for me in my journey. Even before I got interested in such depths of mathematics and later Buddhism, I was listening to talks about psychedelic experiences, which spoke to an awareness of something beyond which we understand while living ordinary life. And that certainly planted the seeds to explore spiritual traditions such as Buddhism. So I'm very grateful for Terence McKenna and the lectures of his that I listened to as well. The transcendental other, as he says, that is one of the things that stuck with me as well too. That which complements our life. Thank you, dear Aaron, for the rose you sent to. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Dear Tattvam Asi, you share that if you start a chainsaw in front of a tree, you don't think it will fear. Why human life fears? I might have to disagree with the premise, because although plants are certainly aware to a different extent than we are, there have been studies that show when there is a threat in the environment of a tree that they will react. It's just that their reaction takes place over a longer period of time than will likely help to evade that threat. Trees can only respond to threats that are slowly approaching over decades rather than one that can immediately happen. In the same way that if suddenly, within, let's say, a fraction of a microsecond, a threat appeared to us, we wouldn't have time to react. We wouldn't have time to be afraid. But still, even if we were, the nature of fear that we experience is surely different than the nature of fear that a tree experiences. Because it doesn't seem like a tree really has a big ego. Trees don't appear to get upset. They don't appear to fight back, at least not on any scale that we're familiar with. There are some territorial disputes between plants that happen over hundreds and thousands of years. But on short time scales, no tree in particular appears to be reactive to the situation. Maybe we are anthropomorphizing a little bit, but still, even then we can find value in the stability that a tree has, that there is a kind of sentiment of acceptance that this life form has evolved to just be where it is, and whatever comes its way, it makes do. Very adaptable. But as humans, we live on such short time scales that we're reactive to everything. Our big egos, we feel like every circumstance is one which we have to prove ourselves through. But great sages are kind of like trees, in that even if a danger were to arise in their surroundings, they are just as unreactive. So we can become more like trees in some ways. I don't know if that answered your question as to why humans are like this and trees are like that, but traditionally it is said only in a human form do we have the capacity of facing our fears directly and ultimately transcending them. So that's something unique to our experience. Dear Kali, thank you for your heart, me too. Namah Shakti Shivaya. Hello, dear Mama JJ. You ask if corded earbuds are better, and do I think your earpods are unhealthy? Whatever works for you, I wish for you to continue to engage in. The reason I use corded is, first of all, I don't have to charge them. No battery I have to worry about. Secondly, it's plugged directly into the output jack of my microphone, and so I wouldn't be able to connect through Bluetooth to this microphone. I have to use analog. But whatever works for you. Every situation has its own strengths, and we can bring out the tools which can levy off of those strengths. Tattvamasi. You ask, is this fear a baggage? totally unnecessary that we are carrying. A lot of it absolutely is, because of all the things we have feared, 99% of them have been unwarranted. If that. Maybe 1% of our fears will actually happen. But you could make the argument that if we're not constantly coming up with things that could go wrong, then how would we even survive that 1%? But I think even if there is truth in that logic, so much is unnecessary. I wouldn't say all of it, because it's a kind of, as you said, self-preservation. And even yogis, whom are unattached to their bodies, seek to preserve their bodies, because through which the highest potentials can be realized. So we can strive to keep our bodies safe and sound so that we can do the most with them and bring the most love into this world, attain the highest spiritual realization. I think that self-preservation is not distinct from fear, that it's a spectrum, that at the most basic level it's a self-preserving mechanism, and at the most extreme level it's anxiety, it's existential dread. And that extremity is what's unnecessary, but not the spectrum in its entirety. There are definitely thresholds under which are healthier, so we can strive to be in that balance where we're not detached from our body in the sense of letting it go to rot, but we're also not always trying to make every situation comfortable for it, lest we imprison ourselves by our comfort seeking. Somewhere between that, where we allow some discomfort, we allow a little self-preservation to be there without fear taking us away from our possibilities. Good night, dear Kalki ji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dear Dr. Jenny, you ask a great question. How can we say other forms don't feel the same as us when we don't know their language? How beautiful. A good question that I will leave up in the open. Fear is like an intensified carefulness. Carefulness by itself is a good thing, but too much carefulness then becomes fear. Dear Greg RG, you shared that you just Googled if scents are a wave or a particle. The answer was it's a molecule, and the shape is how we interpret. So does that mean bad smells actually hurt us? As far as I remember, the study of the olfactory response is still unknown. We know that the shape of molecules has something to do with it. It also has to do partly with what vibrational mode the molecule is in. Because molecules aren't merely static sticks and balls held together. They twist and stretch and rotate and oscillate. They're kind of bouncy a little bit. And you can get something vibrating in different ways. You get the same thing vibrating in different ways. And as such, depending on the vibrational mode of the molecule, we may experience different scents. But yeah, physically speaking, the molecules bind to parts of our nervous system which produces a response in the brain. It can be like the nature of taste too, or that a bitter taste informs us that what we are eating could be a poison, but that doesn't mean it necessarily is a poison. Really dark coffee tastes very bitter, but it's not going to directly damage your system unless you take a lot of it all at one time or over the course of your life. So too, a molecule in our nose might signal, oh, this is a bad thing to be smelling. And it could just be that. It could be a warning sign. But whether or not it causes harm to our lungs, for example, is another question. Thank you, dear Michael, for the heartbeat you had shared too. Jaya Satchitananda. Now, I think it's probably a good place to begin to think about wrapping up this live stream for today, as we've covered some wonderful topics, and I'd love to give my body and mind some space to rest so I can come back hopefully tomorrow. You too, dear Anazek, may you have a wonderful rest of your night. And hello, Demad. Thank you. Oh dear, you'll have to tell me the best way to pronounce your name, but it's Prissy H. Thank you for your rose. Namo Rudraya. Good night, Bongo Dave. And thank you, Nick, for your TGIF too. Braum Hanumate Namah. Before we go, however, there are a trio of things I would like to go through with you. First is to ask you my question of the day again, which is, when or where is silence the most needed? I am curious as to the necessity of silence, given the context of space and time. In what circumstances silence something that may not just be wanted, but in some sense required? Dear Billy, you share when you're overstimulated. Definitely. And hello, Tash, and your dear friend Preyanshu. You share that your dear friend needs some hope and words right now. May everything blossom the way it is meant to be, and with that, trust arise in the process that you are where you need to be right now, and everything you need in order to be the best version of yourself is a part of this moment. I know your answers will come. Dear Dimad, you share that in a healthy work environment, silence is needed to some capacity. Maisky Whiskey, you share when there is not anything you can change with words. How beautiful. Gaia, you share in rest. And Sadik, you share while measuring how comfortable you are with someone you know. That's a great answer. How comfortable you feel being in each other's silence. Dear Jessie, you share when you are emotionally drawn into a splitting cycle. Silence can provide us that space to introspect. Dr. Ginny, you share while bringing new life into the world, and when life is leaving it. I think I've lost my voice a little bit. All of a sudden, hopefully, my voice will return in a moment. But a beautiful answer, dear Dr. Jenny. Thank you for that. Hello, dear Sovereign. Told of love you share in the ocean when whales are trying to talk to each other across the planet. I love that, and it's amazing how far whales can communicate with each other. Dear Mama Angel, you share when we need to be still. Silence is necessary. Dear MDD, you asked, what if you don't see any reason to be where you are at, but you still are? Then the search for the meaning of this moment is still ongoing, and it's within that search that you are exactly where you need to be. Regardless of where you are, the path forward must accommodate this moment. If there are other places for us to be, then in order to get to those places, we have to find a path there from where we are now. And therefore it is from where we are now that we are meant to embark. And dear Mama JJ, you share that you don't think you've ever been anywhere silent. Even the forest is noisy, but it's a nice noisy. I like that. Truly, everything is always in motion. Everything is vibrating. Nothing is truly still. And yet we all know of the concepts of stillness, of silence. So there must be another way in which we use these terms. A different kind of stillness, a more metaphorical one that appears, for example, in nature. Dear Tattvamasi, you share that silence could be without space and time, and when you find yourself there, silence is your friend. I love that. Dear Gregarji, you share, how about with an ISO camera filter, silence as opposed to lots of noise. I like that. That's right. When we have low ISO, or when we must have high ISO in order to take a picture with enough exposure, often there is a lot of noise, but for some clarity to arise in an image, it must be a very still scene. Tati Munika, you share, silence is most needed to experience this moment. I love that. Dear Lucas, thank you for your rose too. Radhe Radhe. And told of love you share, between when the music ends and the musician returns to earth. That's very poetic. I like that. Dear Magdalene, you share, for those underrepresented, so that we may hear what they have to express. Just such a beautiful answer, dear Magdalene. Absolutely. Dear Bongo Dave, you share, when the body pain shows up and starts yelling and no longer making sense, time to quietly walk away. Dear G2 Infinity, you share, when you sneeze, silence is needed. I love the diversity in these answers. And Deanna, you share, when emotions are triggered, we wait to respond. Yeah, silence is needed there. And I like how many of you pointed to symbolism for me to be silent as my voice had left me just a few minutes ago. It seems to have returned though. Thank you. Dear Mama Angel Cindy, you share in holding space for those grieving. And dear Samra, you share that you give silence to people in mourning after you let them know that you're there if they need you. Beautiful. Sovereign, you share, when we feel like we are overreacting or about to. Absolutely. And Diana, your second answer was in meditation. I love that. Mama Angel Cindy, you share, while watching the video of our life while transitioning. Oh, how beautiful. Yeah. DJ, you ask if I would live in New York City. You know, I'm afraid it's not me that gets to decide where I live. Wherever Mama Universe puts me. And just like a kitten, wherever I'm picked up by the scruff of my neck and plopped, I must be by my mother. And Mother Earth. She takes me like a kitten wherever she wants me to go. Dear Jessie, you share that when you feel like being the most loud, you usually realize that's when you should be the quietest. Very beautiful too. And Ragnhildur, you share that silence seems to come automatically before something holy. Oh, what a beautiful observation. And Deanna, your third answer is silence and meditation to hear. I like that. Between lightning and thunder, shares Sadik too. Very poetic you are. When the baby is sleeping, shares Billy. That's beautiful too. And dear Tatvamasi, you share that you look at your tulasi plant. One leaf rots. It chose to die to save others. Where's the fear? It's very beautiful. Though each leaf arise for sunlight. How lovely. And hello, dear Bibi. To heal, shares Annie. Yes, silence is so necessary in healing. Thank you all for exploring this question of the day with me. Dear Orla, you ask if I have an answer to the question of the day. You know, all of you have answered for me. I think anything that I could have said has already been expressed by all of your beautiful voices. But if I had to echo a sentiment of those, it would be that the inner silence of our mind is most needed when there is an outer noise of the world. Xime, you try to be silent when you're angry. That's a beautiful addition too. And dear Plum, you had shared that silence is needed when too many voices speak in the same time. And I love that. Alright. That is the first of 3 things I'd like to do before we end our live stream. The second is to continue reading the epilogue of The Hidden Power in Humans, which, if you haven't heard, I very much recommend checking out all the recordings of our reading sessions that are posted on my Yamsox Lives YouTube channel. This has been a wonderful exploration of chakras and kundalini from a Himalayan yogi. We are just learning about the spiritual lineage to which he belongs, called the Guru Parampara. His Param Gurudev is Param Yogeshwar Shri Devpuri, depicted here, and we're continuing to hear stories about his life. A hunter told the following story. One day, I was on my way home with my booty in a basket. A dozen dead birds. When I saw Shri Devpuri approaching in the distance, quickly I hid the basket because I was afraid of Shri Devpuri's anger. As Shri Devpuri reached me, he immediately asked, "What have you just hidden in the bushes?" "Nothing, Lord," I said. "Nothing?" he asked. "Only something for my children," I finally stammered. "You only think of your children, but unfortunately, not the children of these birds," Master said severely. "Before God, nothing is hidden. Give me the basket now." As I handed the basket to him, he opened it, and miraculously, all the birds that had been shot flew away to a new life. Since this experience, I have renounced the killing of animals forever. Other events also testify impressively to the divine power of Shri Devpuri. Here's another one. The Meena family was celebrating the wedding of the daughter of Vinjaram in Kailash. In the middle of the festivities, to the dismay of all, a young girl by the name of Keti Bai fell ill suddenly and died almost immediately. However, the family were indeed fortunate that Shri Devpuri was staying in the village at this time, and believing in his divine power, they hoped for his merciful assistance. They carried the young girl to him, laid her at his feet, and asked for his grace. Shri Devpuri looked at the young girl and said, "She is not dead. She will grow up to be a healthy, loving, and devout woman and mother. Now, my daughter, awaken from your meditation." Then Keti Bai opened her eyes and smiled at her benefactor. She is still alive today and lives with her husband, Lala Ramina, in the village of Shri Madhopur in Sikar district of Rajasthan. The noble Rajput family of Shri Balu Singh from the nearby locality of Jalunda were also witness to a similar miracle. Shri Balu Singhji's son died one night, and the grieving family carried the child's body to Shri Devpuri's ashram in order to plead for his grace. It was already after midnight when they reached the ashram of Shri Devpuri, and he called to them angrily, "This is no cemetery. Go away." You are miserable and selfish and come only when you have problems. But all knew that Shri Devpuriji's harsh words were only a test for them, and they waited patiently until his mood was gentler. Their faith was rewarded, for shortly afterward Shri Devpuriji came out of the ashram and instructed them to bring wood from the 3 different villages and light a fire. When they had done this, he took the blanket that was covering the boy and tore it in half. One half he lay over the child again, and the other half he gave to the mother, saying, "Take this cloth and tie it to the branch of that tree over there." She took it and tied the knot with trembling hands, and as the night tightened, the child opened his eyes and began to breathe. For a long time, there were no photos of Shri Devpuriji. Oh, this is the ending of that story. For a long time, there were no photos of Shri Devpuriji. Oh, this is the ending of that story. My apologies. My internet disconnected me for a moment. If it has returned, then I may continue where I left off. For a long time, there were no pictures or photos of Shri Devpuriji. When asked for a picture, he would say, "My image is the sun. Whenever you wish to see me, look at the sun." But he did allow one artist to paint his portrait, and so at least there is one portrayal of his physical form preserved for us. Unfortunately, there are no transcripts of Shri Devpuriji's talks, but I can pass on a few of his words. Number 1, God takes upon himself the destiny of his devotees. Secondly, every thought, every word, and every action that is begun with the blessing of Guru Deva will be successful. And thirdly, there is no power in the universe that is able to hold you back for long. Keep Guru Deva in your heart always, and then success is certain. One day, Shri Devpuriji revealed to his disciples that he would leave his physical body on the next day and reunite with the cosmic light. The people did not want to believe this as they saw him in front of them, healthy and strong. But the next day his words were fulfilled. Shri Devpuriji left his body during meditation. Later, a prayer hall was erected on this holy site. Shri Devpuriji and Shri Mahaprabhuji transmitted the science of yoga in daily life to us, and all yoga aspirants are under the protection of Shri Devpuriji. He is always there whenever we think upon him and show our adoration and love. Thank you for listening. Next time we'll talk about his foremost disciple, Bhagwan Shri Deep Narayan Mahaprabhuji, which is the direct guru of our author. We do have a picture of him. Until next time, let us pause our reading of The Hidden Power in Humans there for now. And now we come to our concluding segment of our live stream. Thank you all for being here, everyone. Thank you, dear Samra, for the hanging lights you shared too. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. You have a great ear, dear Greg RG. Bhagwan, is that word etymologically linked to Bhagavan? Yes, in fact, it is that word identically. But In schwa-deleted languages like Hindi, for example, or Gujarati, the inner A becomes deleted and the aspirated labial semivowel loses its aspiration and becomes just like our English W, wa. So in Hindi you would pronounce the Sanskrit word Bhagwan, but with proper pronunciation it is Bhagavan, the same word. And it does indeed mean a form of the divine, a personal form of the divine at that. Dear Mama Angel Cindy, you ask, do my grandparents or parents understand my spiritual self? I don't even understand my spiritual self, so I give them a break. But everyone understands the spiritual self to the capacity that they can, and I have to love and respect that. Alright, I would like to end with a meditation for us to do. This meditation comes from a lineage of gurus to which Paramahansa Vishwananda resides, whom is a very well-known guru. He had revealed this mantra to us, which is Shri Vitala Giridhari Parabrahmane Namaha. And I just moved my whole being. That's how powerful this mantra is. Word by word, Shri is an honorific prefix, often translated as auspicious, holy, or revered. Vitala is a form of Lord Krishna, worshipped primarily in the Indian state of Maharashtra, also known as Vithoba or Panduranga. Giridhari is another name for Lord Krishna, meaning the lifter of Govardhan hill. It's a very beautiful story in which the form of the divine, as Krishna, lifts up an entire hill. And I have just a little depiction of that we can bring our awareness to, holding up a hill and watching the waves crash from the waterfalls above. And Parabrahmane means to the supreme absolute truth, referring to the ultimate reality or the highest aspect of the divine. And of course, Nama means salutations, or I bow down. Altogether, it might mean salutations to the supreme absolute truth, revered as Shri Vitala Giridhari. So it's a mantra that gets us in touch with that potential which can even move mountains. And we'll be listening to the guru that revealed that mantra recited 108 times. So allow me to set that up. To do so, I'm going to minimize our background music. This was sent to me, by the way, from Sky Guardian G. We'll be doing it 108 times. Starting now.
Shri Vithala Giridhari Parabrahmane Namaha. 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 Shri Vitthalagiridhari 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 Parabrahmane Namaha. श्री विठ्ठल गिरिधारी परब्रह्मणे नमः। 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 Shri Vitthal Giridhari Parabrahmane Namaha. 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 Shri Vitthal Giridhari Parabrahmane Namaha.
Thank you for chanting or listening along with me. There we have reached the 108th recitation of this mantra. So, thank you. Salutations to that supreme potential through which even the movement of mountains is made possible. Namaste. Dear Greg RG, you actually found this one the hardest to pronounce. We've done some challenging ones before, but there is a hard consonant group, which is the pair of retroflex T's, ritala. It's difficult. And the concept of consonantal elision is unique to Sanskrit. And it's also pronounced at a little faster speed. The schwas were pronounced a little faster than might be elongated typically. Great challenging mantra. I like mantras that are challenging. Those are my favorite kinds. Thank you, dear Andre, for the rose and heart me that you sent earlier. And dear Ragnhildur, thank you for your trio of roses. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. I'm happy that it was coming to you, dear Mama Angel Cindy. Dear Alien T, thank you for your heart me as well. Om Dum Dargaye Namaha. And Diana, thank you for your bubble tea and rose. Or Radhe. And Jessica Lynn, thank you for your rose and tiny tiny. Yippee! Thank you, dear Alien T, for another friendship necklace as well. Ram Ram. And dear Andre, thank you for your 17 roses. Never expected, but always appreciated. Hari Om Tat Sat. We are ending our live stream momentarily, but thank you all for being here. Dear Crazy Eyes, you're wondering if I can explain in layman's terms the reasoning in spiritual communities between the numbers like 3, 6, 9, and 108. Generally, there's something called the strong law of small numbers, which states that small numbers have big importance because so many things can be described in terms of small numbers like 3, 6, 9. And so the small numbers, in some sense, have more properties to them than really big arbitrary numbers like 3,296,412. Like, what's the spiritual significance in such an arbitrary number? It's hard to find, but nice, concise, small numbers, it's easy to point to. Trinities, for example, and different multiples of trinities. 108 is equal to a pair of trios of trios of trios. In other words, it's 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 3. So its prime factorization is very simple. But astrologically speaking, There are 9 celestial bodies and 12 constellations. 9 times 12 makes 108 different astrological influences. So each chanting of a mantra 108 times evades the effect of one astrological influence. The idea in Vedic astrology being to transcend the stars and let us write our own destiny, so we can do so through the symbolism of 108. There are many other symbolisms we can point to. For example, 108 moons can fit between Earth and the moon, and 108 suns can fit in between the Earth and the sun. And because of that precise distance to diameter ratio of 108 for both the sun and moon, solar eclipses are made possible. And just to add to that, across the diameter of the sun, 108 Earths can be fit too. So it's a number that has a lot of significance in our place in this cosmos. That is the significance of why we chant mantras 108 times. Thank you, dear Vibber, for your Heart Me and Team bracelet too. Jaya Sita Ram. And with that, I bid you farewell. This live stream will be uploaded to my Yamsox Lives YouTube channel in case there's any part you wish to listen to again. Also, the readings and the meditations, they have their dedicated playlists too, so you can just listen to the snippets if you find value in that too. But above all, may this be dedicated to the divinity within you as an offering. Thank you all for being here. I'm honored to be here. May any lesson that has come from this allow me to make an even more inclusive space next time. I wish to be in service to you in that way. Om Asato ma Satgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Murtyorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good night, dear G to Infinity. Good night, Bungo Dave. Good night, dear Gregar G. Thank you for being here, dear Magdalene. Much love, everyone. Night, Dr. Ginny. And for those of you in other time zones, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Above all, may you all have a wonderful rest of your present moment. Namaste. Good night, dear Talon. Gaia. Namaste, Angel, deeply sovereign. Vai Tatvamasi.